Welcome back to Picture Breakdown. This is going to be my in-depth breakdown of The Bad Batch Episode 5, Rampage. I'm going to be going through this episode shot by shot for interesting visual details, hidden references, as well as any background information that you might need to know. If you're brand new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified about any future Bad Batch episode breakdown. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen the episode already. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so we start off with them walking into a place to try to find Sid, who used to get intel for the Jedi. On their way, there's a sign above the place that translates from Orbesh to Sid's. They get into the place and there's tons of Orbesh that I translated. Behind Sid is a machine which in Orbesh translates to credit pusher. So it's probably one of those machines that you put in a token and then you try to push off the other tokens off the ledge. On the other side, you can see one that says credit craze and then one that says Corellian roll. And then there's three big ones with big squares that all say on the bottom, insert credit. When the Bad Batch are working on trying to figure out where Sid is, Omega just walks over to her and says that she's Sid. The fact that Omega is able to do this is just another point in favor of her being force sensitive, as I have theorized in my previous videos. They get the intel from Sid, and when they're heading to rescue Muchi, Omega asks,
"What's a slave trader?"
Someone who buys and sells people for credits.
People can be sold.
They don't have a choice. They're captives, treated like property.
That doesn't seem right.
It's kind of weird why she's wondering that, because she worked on Kamino her entire life. And as has been discussed earlier in the show, the clones are people who get sold for money to the Republic to be used. They make it there, and they get captured by Zygerians. We've actually seen Zygerians in a couple of episodes during the Clone Wars. The leader says that they were returned to Kadavo, which was under the control of the Zygerian slave empire, which it used to process slaves. Omega finds a cage, unlocks it, and out comes an adolescent Rancor, who we later find out is Muchi, the one they were sent after. This is a Rancor, the same type of monster that was in Jabba's palace during Return of the Jedi that Luke killed. Later, we see Bib Fortuna is the person who needed Muchi. Bib Fortuna is the right-hand man of Jabba the Hutt, so depending on how fast Rancors grow, I would say that they're implying that this Rancor is the one that Luke killed in the Return of the Jedi. Order 66 happens in 19 BBY, or before the Battle of Yavin, and the Return of the Jedi happens in 34 ABY, or after the Battle of Yavin. So that would mean that the Return of the Jedi is 53 years after this takes place, plenty of time for the Rancor to grow up. They eventually get Muchi, and they bring her to Sid. Sid tells them that it is Fennec Shand who is after Omega, which we already knew, and that Sid got this information from the Guild. As explored in The Mandalorian, the Guild is the group of bounty hunters that most of them get their missions off of, so Sid having access to the Guild could have some negative implications. Alright, so during this episode, Hunter begins to hold his head in pain, and if you remember, he hit his head twice already. Where he's holding his head is kind of where the inhibitor chip is on the clones. I saw this 2 episodes ago when they crash landed, but it didn't really mean anything because he had just hit his head. The fact that after a few days Wrecker's still hurting seems to be implying that there's some kind of changes that happened to the inhibitor chip during those hits. This could mean that the inhibitor chip was activated when he got hit, and if it turns out Omega is force sensitive, Wrecker could be forced to try to kill her. This would make for a very interesting couple of episodes, and I really hope that's the case. So the things that were added to the plot include Omega getting her energy bow that we saw her with in the trailer, possibly seeing the origin of Jabba's Rancor, and the Bad Batch learning who Fennec Shand is. I enjoyed this episode, from the couple of Orbesh that I translated, to the fight scenes with the Zygerians, to the possible backstory of Jabba's Rancor. I'm really impressed with what this show's been throwing at us thus far, and I'm really looking forward to some kind of great twist reveal that they're probably going to throw at us near the end of the show. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified about any future Bad Batch episode breakdowns. Put down any questions or comments you might have, and let me know if you think Wrecker's inhibitor chip was activated. If you know someone who might enjoy these, consider sharing this with them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next breakdown.